This current UCLA team has the makings of a top 10 team. Let's dive in to how they can become one.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making this show your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever you get your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for your support. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel, because FanDuel makes every moment more. It's playoffs wind down, sports stop sporting like we want them to, but this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Where we get started today is the fact that UCLA Basketball has what boasts to be a top 10 transfer class. I'd like to argue it's top 5. They are currently ranked, if I look at 24/7 Sports, compared to all the different recruiting rankings, they've got them as a top number 10. UCLA as an overall class, because they didn't go very heavy on the freshmen this year, closer to the things when you look across the rest of the country who might be sporting some 5 stars. 7 of UCLA's 8 newcomers are 4 stars, one of them being a 3-star transfer in Dominic Harris, who still boasts close to 17 points per game coming from LMU. This is a team that has the potential to be a top 10 team. I was looking at the way too early rankings. ESPN is obviously way too early, but let's dive in, right? UCLA initially slotted in when they were in the flurry of getting guys, talented players, as a top 14, top 15 team. And now as the summer's worn, kept beginning to come through, we've gone to spring into still early summer, UCLA has fallen and tumbled down these rankings from ESPN to number 24, almost falling out of the top 25, which is where this team was last year, a team that was on the verge of a top 25 preseason ranking and wasn't a team that ended up making the tournament. This is a team with so much proven talent, just not necessarily together, that I'm confused why they're not getting the excitement and hype that they deserve beyond just Westwood. A team that, with the returners, quite a bit of production. The only big loss they've suffered was a Dembona who went to the draft and was taken by the Philadelphia 76ers in the second round. And then you bring in 8 new players, 4-star basically or better, except for Dominic Harris, who's still finishing up school from LMU to get to UCLA officially, as the other 7 newcomers are already officially in UCLA signed scholarship or NAL scholarship players. A team that, with all the potential, still has a very tough Big Ten schedule, some tough non-conference games like North Carolina on the East Coast. You've got Arizona in the works, Gonzaga in the works. We'll see how many of those actually happen by the time everything's all said and done when the schedule's released. Yeah, this is a team where, if you look at what's returning, we're just going to start with what's returning for a team that wasn't so good but showed some flashes of brilliance against top-tier competition last year. They've got Dylan Andrews, who was closer to a 15, 18-point-per-game scorer within those fluctuations down the stretch, including in the Pac-12 tournament when Mick Cronin put a lot of the bulk of the offense in his hands. Sebastian Mack wasn't anywhere to be found. It was Andrews who took the role and hit a bunch of shots, hit a bunch of threes, and was very close to dancing all the way across the floor to a near game-tying layup at the buzzer against Oregon, who made their Cinderella run to the NCAA tournament through the Pac-12 tournament. But the Bruins have a starting point guard that is proven to be, at the end of the season, a capable bulk-playing guard that should get more rest this year, better opportunities to score, to pass, and defend. And he's only going to be better. He's in his 3rd season and 2nd as a full-time player. You've got Sebastian Mack as a returner. For a large portion of the season, 95% of the season, it seemed like, he was the leading scorer until Dylan Andrews jumped over him in the last week or 2 of the season. That's a talented scoring guard, needs to get better defensively, much better shooting the 3 at 28%, played a lot of minutes, showed flashes of brilliance, and still frustrated the hell out of all of us. And he's a guy that is going to have to compete for his minutes as the 2 when it comes to scoring, distributing, efficiency, effort, all of it. If that doesn't come up, he's not going to see any playing time. So the only thing you're going to see from Sebastian Mack is a lot better, or he ain't getting playing time. Then let's talk about Lazar Stefanovic, the transfer from Utah, who he wanted a lot more of, struggled early to get a consistent shot from three when the Bruins went on a winning streak from end of January into February. It was part of his hot three-point shooting stretch until he got cold, about a 3 for 18 stretch in the end of February, early March. And then he was red hot to end the year. His last 6 games, Stefanovic averaged about 62% from three, 62% from three. Red hot, including connecting in more than half his attempts in just about each of those last 6 games. So Stefanovic, who's arguably, according to what I preseason predicted, not even a starter, ESPN, for their projected starters, has him as a starter at like the 4. And I just don't see how Kobe Johnson and Stefanovic 3 and 4 will work when you've got Bilodeau, Kyle, Daly. You just got so much talent and big men that I'm not sure you're going to see those guys starting at the 3 and the 4. That's probably why they're not projected high enough, because you don't got guys in the right spots in the starting lineup. I know Cronin coaches defense, but let's talk about the returners. Stefanovic showed brightness of why he could shoot. And if he's going to earn minutes, it's because he's got to be a lot better. Rebounding, he was already really good, second best rebounder, third best rebounder on the team. Shooting was much improved at the end of the season and probably won't get the same amount of bulk opportunities this year with so much diversified efficiency around the roster. He's not going to be asked to shoot the bulk load of threes, and that will probably lead to more success. Then you've got growing roles for the likes of Adai Mara, right? Someone who went from unplayable to borderline number 2 center of the 5, right behind Dembona at the end of the year, right? Flip-flopping with Nuba. That is somebody who developed from, very young 18-year-old out of Spain into somebody who could be a weapon, 7'2", 7'3", as a very young player. He stayed. We saw Beta Lee. We saw all these other guys transfer out. Mata was the one who stayed. So obviously he wants to learn, grow, knew he was a project, and Mick Cronin's willing to take a chance on him in a very filled out roster. If he's someone who's hardly playing or getting minutes, we've seen the peak of what he could, not the peak, but we've seen it growing from just nothing to something. Imagine what a full offseason does in a UCLA offseason program, a full season where he's getting challenged every day with the physical roster just to play. There could be a lot of development there. Same can be said for the 2 Williams, right? Devin and Brandon Williams. Brandon Williams started about 14 games last year. Devin Williams hardly saw the floor, although I was in attendance to one of the games he played with both Mata and Devin Williams, and they led themselves to a big run and surge to beat USC at the Galen Center. That was huge for both the Bruins, who were 6'11" and taller. Remember, Mick Cronin normally doesn't have this big of a roster. Downscaled with some of the guys leaving, so you're going to have an undersized center with William Kyle, one would expect. I do think this UCLA team with the returners is going to have either a lot of talent, or if they're not good enough, they're not going to see the floor. And remember, of the players leaving, if you don't include a Dembona, the guys who just exclusively transferred out, between McClendon, Betake, Vide, and Feeble, transferred out and went pro. That's only like 14% of the minutes, or 17% of the minutes played, 14% of the scoring, hardly any rebounds. And while there's opportunity for more, it just wasn't the case. And you've got guys who were leaders on their team, whether it's off the court, on the court, scoring, rebounding, defense, all the intangibles to play multiple positions. Those are the guys filling the spots of the guys left. And when you come for an Dembona departure to the NBA draft, this is what Mick Cronin got in the portal to replace and get better from last year's under 500 team that didn't make the tournament. Between the idea that he might press the NIL budget and the talent to fill the gaps that were missing last year, UCLA with the Turners only going to get better. And then with the newcomers are going to vault themselves into a conversation that they just could not be in last year, despite many opportunities to get a big win. Let's talk about that next on Locked On UCLA. I love sports. I love them. And I never want them to stop. It's pretty obvious. I'm on vacation, and what am I doing instead of going out hanging on the beach? I'm watching sports. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to, even though this summer's pretty dope. FanDuel, though, can help me keep the sports going whenever I want. And all I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. That's something for everyone. So head on over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, so cruising on to the second segment for Locked On UCLA, let's talk about this Bruins squad, right? So I talked more returners, what's coming back, guys we can expect to be in the fold for minutes or who played last year, didn't have a lot down the edge. UCLA has top 10 potential. They went from top 15 looking like they were winning off season. Of course, everybody got obsessed with Dan Hurley potentially going to the Lakers. That's not what happened. Some big-time players going to the draft. Spears came back to Alabama. Calipari going from Kentucky to Arkansas. Musselman going from Arkansas to USC. Having technically a better class transfer-wise because he had to flip a roster with completely overhauling that team. Whatever it may be, UCLA is on the fringe of a top 25 team before the season's even started. And you look at the guys who are coming in, proven scorers, rebounders, defenders, on their team with almost bulk minutes played in most cases where they're all healthy, leading teams to success or primary reasons where teams got their wins in certain situations, right? So we're looking at a team where I'm disagreeing. We're all going to disagree as to who's going to get the minutes on this team, where they're going, whether you go from a 35-minute per game rate, 27 to 30, there's going to be a lot of minutes cut, a lot of minutes earned, and a lot of frustrated people who don't get a lot of time. Even though I've touted this before, and what Mick Cronin told, the LA Times, Ben Bulge, how the Bruins might press, and that's how they could be, one, even more elite defensively, two, lead to more easy transition buckets, and most importantly, get more playing time because a lot more guys will burn out, use energy, need more rest, and it's going to feel like you've played a lot more if Mick Cronin turns into a predecessor, right? When he coached it under Bob Huggins a long time ago, he was at West Virginia, went through a conference affiliation switch, and went to a press. Mick Cronin, after a terrible season, very strong defensively, teased the press, now has the athleticism, truly the depth, and the skill to do so. And this cycle of guys to go through and say, hey, if they're not going to play defense, we're going to put this guy in. If he's gassed, this is the guy who's going to score. And these are athletic guys who will get the rebounds and steal the passes. So we're looking at now in the second segment, what's coming in to lead UCLA to success. One, potentially a whole new defensive schematic. We already know that if you look at all these different schemes, Mick Cronin, you look at the analytics, defensively, the Bruins are nearly across the top, almost all categories, year in and year out. Mick Cronin teams are. Even if they're undersized, underskilled, undervalued, they are going to make you scrap and claw for points offensively, generally 95% of the time. Mick Cronin talks about 10% better, 10% worse, based on a given night for potential of a team. UCLA tended to play 10% worse most of the time last year. Still, it was almost always a defensive slugfest unless teams started to hit threes. And that was a terrible defensive year for UCLA, if you think about it. Not the most terrible team defensive you've ever seen, but there are some times on the backcourt where you'd see Ole efforts, recovery efforts from Bona to save the opposition from getting easy layups from time to time, but then a lot of free throws when Bona wasn't in there to save everybody on defense from the Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year. So while you're missing somebody, the Bruins are getting the replacement in the Summer League Tournament MVP, William Kyle III. You're getting another athletic 4-3 type who could potentially play an undersized 5, and Eric Daly Jr. that could stretch the floor. You're looking at like ESPN, and they've got Bilodeau starting as the 5, or Stefanovic, whatever that weird starting 5 is, which doesn't account for a real legit 5-man defensively. Mick Cronin and I would think, have similar taste where you're probably going to have more of a big man play, and you're going to switch the 2 through 4 more than you're going to go through and have Bilodeau as the 5. But I could be wrong. For this team specifically. Either way, you've got Bilodeau who can shoot and score, projected as a 4. I've never seen 5-man for this year's team. I would go more Mata, Devin Williams, William Kyle, and Daly Jr., who I think will get a bulk of those minutes. And then you've got a projected 4 with Bilodeau who's going to score and shoot and get rebounds and will take the place of Adem Bona as the guy most likely to foul out on this year's team. He is skilled and was a top 2 player. Jordan Pope, went to an elite program. Now you've got the likes of Bilodeau coming to UCLA, another elite program. At Oregon State, they've struggled in recent years, had the opportunity of a lifetime going to the Elite Eight the same year UCLA went to the Final Four. But you've got Bilodeau jumping to Big Ten World. Then you've got Sky Clark, who can score. Easy, said and done. Put up big numbers at the end of his Louisville year, has bounced around. Third different choice. He's wanted to go for school, playing basketball in his college career, second stop. Now, this is where UCLA might have to battle between Clark. You've got Dominic Harris, who's on his third stop. You've got Sebastian Mack, who could be a candidate after having success and struggles in his freshman year. And if he doesn't get playing time, he is a candidate to leave. That is a unique battle for somebody in the 2 spot, where maybe Stefanovic could share the floor with Kobe Johnson. Those are 2 transfers with leadership roles that could all battle for the 2 spot or the small forward position. You're going to have improved shooting. Whether, as I touted, Stefanovic red hot from 3 to end the season in the 23-24 campaign, you've got Kobe Johnson, who's shot closer to 35%, maybe not as good in the recent year at USC, but if he's a 10-point per game scorer, rebounder, all Pac-12 defensive team member, that is a guy who's going to come in, was the team captain for your arch rival. That's immediate leadership coming in the locker room. So you've got much better leadership. You've got postseason experience. The intangibles all around with experience in the Power 5, slowly turning into 4 conferences in all sports, mostly Power 5 in basketball, because the Big East is still a thing. And then you've got the likes of everybody coming in, right? And there's so many people coming, you just kind of forget. Wait, you've got Sky Clark, you've got Kobe Johnson, and you still got 2 freshmen coming in. A borderline 5-star McDonald's All-American and Trent Perry, who's going to have something to say for some point guard, maybe shooting guard minutes. Eric Freeney, who's probably okay. I remember reading the articles between Eric Sondheimer or Ben Bolch as this is a guy who fits the Mick Cronin coaching style of being in your face and telling you to get better from what he's dealt with in high school coming to college. Somebody who's going to grind and scrap to earn minutes and might be okay sitting on the bench for a large portion of his freshman year, how it used to be in college basketball. If you weren't an elite player or at a spot where the team desperately needed you to be, like a Dylan Andrews last year, or a lot of spots where these freshmen like Brandon Williams, Badike, or more were needed, and Sebastian Mack to play last year. Now, that's improved in lots of minutes. When he's talked about when it comes to coaching a team, players, you still need the talented players. Cronin could take his team so far, but the talent coming in between the Freeneys, the Perrys as the freshman class, which was a steal, to overload the scholarship limit, where UCLA is literally over the scholarship limit. They have NIL boosting a scholarship right now, and in the direct pay-to-play models soon enough, that will be adapted across the college sports world. UCLA is doing its own form of that this year. There's so much talent in the newcomers. I think it's being undervalued between the rest of the country. UCLA somehow is in the 30s in an overall recruiting class, transfers and freshmen coming in. Yeah, there's no Cooper Flagg or Kaman Maluwak coming into UCLA, but I still would like to believe in all these players coming in who have proven numbers scoring-wise, shooting the 3 when it comes to Daly Jr. versatility, Bilodeau scoring, Dominic Harris's ability to shoot the 3, 40%, Sky Clark, Kobe Johnson, and Kyle, who've done it on teams that have made it to the NCAA tournaments at the elite high school levels. I'm not sure how that's not closer to a 15-10 recruiting class with what's already coming back last year with experience and exposure under the Mick Cronin system. And you're expecting me to sit here that with just as much topsy-turvy transition, right? UConn's losing a lot of talent, and Hurley knows how to win that portal year in and year out for back-to-back champions. But you're expecting me 1 through all the way to 23 right before UCLA is supposed to be picture perfect? Did North Carolina prove something as a preseason number 1, not even making the NCAA tournament a couple years ago? And yes, here I am in the preseason yapping back and forth. But UCLA certainly has the potential to be a top 10 team. I look at all these teams, you see the runner-up. They lost their star in Zach Edey and Purdue. The Bruins get them later this upcoming season. You've got the likes of Kentucky changing coaches. All these teams that are top 10 material, right? Tennessee last year, Their pick is going to the Lakers, their best player. All these teams have lost elite talent, and the Bruins have only gained elite talent and lost one, and they were able to get a qualified replacement in equal, in my opinion, who might foul out less. And you're trying to tell me UCLA somehow is more 4 or 5 seed potential right now as opposed to 1 or 2 or 3 seed line right now? I just don't understand that. I do not understand that with where everybody's going with this. I don't. But what equally is understandable, though, is UCLA football's rise in the recruiting rankings as you win some and you lose some in the recruiting battles. Ending the month of June 2024, UCLA has gained half of their 2025 commits in 1 month, probably more than what Chip Kelly's done in 20 years. Jokes and some seriousness apply there. And then you lose some recruiting battles. But it's impressive nonetheless with what June 24 brought this year for Deshaun Foster and company. We'll talk about that to wrap up the Locked On UCLA podcast. UCLA's class of 25 ranking is fluctuated from top 25, top 20, now to 30, 40s, whatever it may be. It's a lot better than where Chip Kelly left it, which was literally in the dust digging its own grave. Now UCLA has something of it's breathing. Their recruiting class is exciting, talented, and only growing as Deshaun Foster has breathed life into a recruiting philosophy that was dormant for close to 6 years and practically dead in high school recruiting the last 3 years under Chip Kelly. That's old news. What's new news is the winning and losing in some recruiting battles. And I think it's impressive for Deshaun Foster and his recruiting staff, both in the wins and losses, where he's picked up steam in some and swooped in local products either way. So let's take a look at some last-minute commits in the June 24 commitment mini class, right? This is all for the class of 25, still a year from now. But UCLA, with about, 14 hard commits right now, all verbals, got half of their commits in the month of June of 24. Half. Isn't that outstanding? And still, if you go from middle of May to June, they've got close to 8 to 10 hard commits for the class of 25, which only had, 1 under Chip Kelly, or as close to that. And they've got 14 total now. That's exactly the energy and enthusiasm Deshaun Foster has brought. Words I'm going to continue to use for head coach Deshaun Foster, because he is bringing the complete opposite, literally the complete opposite of what Chip Kelly had under his UCLA program. Very different philosophies, as Foster's brought in so much passion to this program as a whole that it just did not have under Chip Kelly. Now we'll see where the wins and losses and the scoring and the defense all goes within that. But just getting the talent in, it's completely different. And UCLA got a kid from Arlington Heights, Hershey quarterback. You've got the likes of Colton Gamino, who announced his commitments just before the weekend at the end of June. This is a kid, 3-star, 6'2" product offered in mid-May, and fairly recently took an official visit to UCLA, where now, all right, just had a junior season, 2,100 yards passing, 27 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, a few rushing touchdowns, 51 yards. So not exactly the biggest rushing quarterback, dubbed more as a pro-style quarterback. And remember, UCLA's top recruit in the class of 25 is Madden Iamaleava. So that is a kid whose brother is supposed to be the second coming over at Tennessee, a SoCal product that came in, and UCLA gets another quarterback. Certainly not unheard of to get 1 to 2, maybe 3 quarterbacks in the class, where UCLA, remember, they already have 2 to 3 quarterbacks coming in from 24. You've got Justin Martin, who's been in waiting to get opportunities to play. And you'll still have a couple of seasons left once Garbers is done after the 24 season, and still might be able to play in 24, depending on how it all shapes out. Got Martin in there. You got Iamaleava in there. Bunch of quarterbacks who are looking to play. And now you've got the likes of what Gamino said to 24/7 Sports. It was the staff largely. It was the relationships. And we'll talk more about this in the next Locked On UCLA episode, where the complete revamp of how UCLA went about recruiting, as written in the LA Times and detailed, I think, greatly by Ben Bolch, has shaped it, the staff and the relationships, the lack of need to go directly to Chip Kelly to maybe get an offer. Where, all right, let's get this kid offered. Let's show him Deshaun Foster. Excitement, craziness, things people might describe me as, and what the UCLA program is. And now you've got Gamino who's coming in, and, it's bringing in guys who can fit in the academics, who can fit in the football, the ability to learn a pro-style system. What does that bring in? You've got Bieniemy, who's literally a pro-style guy, right? Has a couple years on that contract as the offensive coordinator. If he does well, Mom probably will be offered a job after this year at the NFL, or maybe a higher level, depending on what you're thinking, right? Maybe a head coach, who knows where it might go with Bieniemy. But right now, if you're getting guys who could potentially be pro-style guys, I think under Bieniemy, it makes sense to recruit a guy like this, a 3-star product, to come in, potentially battle Madden in his current class of 25 as that number 1 quarterback on the depth chart in the 25 class, maybe usurp the 24 class quarterbacks and be the potential backup or starter in the 25 season. That's a lot to put on this kid who just verbaled fairly recently. But if you see, right, each class, it's like soccer, right? You're going to get a goalkeeper every year, right? You're going to go get different years. And in football, you get quarterbacks, sometimes multiple in a year, for different things, guys who have different body builds, different understandings of different systems, certain plays, right? Remember UCLA had the running quarterback, and they've got so many different things. That's why you go get Gamino as an all-around type guy who posted pretty solid numbers in his junior year. Commit, bring him in academically, just in case things fall through with a big name commit like a Madden Iamaleava, or if things change during their UCLA careers, as we saw with Dante Mora, coaching staff changes, you still want to have an overall approach to bring in more depth. And that's also what UCLA is getting when they got a defensive edge rusher in Epi Citanle. I'm probably butchering that, but that's a St. John Bosco kid who comes in, another 3-star who is an edge rusher, West Coast kid. Obviously, if you don't know about St. John Bosco high school football, I don't know what to tell you. They churn out elite products 1 through whatever they got scholarship rise. Starters, backups, and third stringers and JV players all have D1 offers, it seems like nowadays. And some JV players could be starting on varsity rosters elsewhere. So for Citanle, coming in, commits to UCLA, adds to what UCLA was depleted of. Defensive edge rushers after you see Latu leave. You saw the Murphy twins, who I think signed with 2 different teams, have the same numbers in the NFL right now. They were depleted of that, and UCLA got stopgaps in the transfer portal, but Foster is emphasizing development, getting talent at certain spots, and getting that built up in the high school recruiting class. And that is where you've got guys who bring out ceilings, 6'2", build, bigger body, I believe. He's a big body, maybe not 6'2", maybe I'm thinking of the quarterback, but this is a bigger defensive edge rusher who through his senior season could rise in rankings. We see that all the time, 3 to 4-star, whatever it might be. So you got 2 commits for UCLA, quarterback and a defensive edge, at spots where UCLA has a lot of searching to do defensively up front and in the quarterback room after you saw a lot of talent leave after the 23 season and UCLA losing a lot of veteran leadership offensively in the 24 season. And that's exactly what Foster and the recruiting staff is addressing when it comes to the academics, the local talent, and who could build up a bulk of depth in those spots. That's what UCLA is doing. But overall, the day this podcast dropped and recorded, July 1st, UCLA lost a recruiting war. It's okay. They lost Zadrius Rainey-Sale, the number 1 product in the state of Washington, which has had some very good high school football players and programs over the years. This is a guy who ended up choosing Washington over UCLA and Florida State. Why is that significant? Why even mention a top-tier linebacker going to his hometown state? Well, for UCLA, at the very worst, to be in the top 3. For someone who almost at, those All-American games they play in the offseason, to almost verbal to Florida State. He was already committed to Washington after their national championship game appearance. Crazy coaching changes right after Saban retires. Kalen DeBoer goes to Alabama. Then Jed Fish gets hired at Washington. UCLA surged at the last minute. very much surged. Reading what Brandon Huffman wrote for the 24/7 Sports article, UCLA was right in there up to the very end. Now, crystal balls and everything pointed to him going home, and looking at what he wanted, he really wanted to play for a big-time program closer to home, and there's none bigger than the Washington Huskies. Dear apologies to the Washington State Cougars, who have been very entertaining to watch over the years in various programs. In football, they're top 25. Basketball, they made the tournament. Baseball, they've been doing things. But still, if you're going to stay home, they've got the team who literally just made the national championship game in the most recent season. That makes a lot of sense. Under a young, fairly young, quote unquote, but rising star in the head coaching ranks in Fish, that's not a bad deal. And for UCLA to be battling with somebody who's in his home state, battling another ACC program, which has certainly lots of opportunities out in Tallahassee, and for the Bruins to get an unofficial, throwing a lot of money, would have risen back into the top 30, close to the top 25, again in the 25 class, could have almost had 9, 10, 11 commits from mid-May to the first day of July. The fact that UCLA's in this is remarkable. Chip Kelly, they would have been blinking, yeah, it's fine, it's a joke. They would have never been in there. They would have never been in the conversation. Now Deshaun Foster, if there's just a little window of a crack, that entire recruiting staff that we're not even getting credit for, but we'll talk a little bit more in the next episode, they're getting their hands and doing the dirty work, finding the fits, the academic fits, the ideal fits for systems, schemes, player intangibles. If there's a window, if there's a sliver of opportunity, they are taking it and getting into Final Fours, Final Threes. And as dumb as I think these social media posts of top 10 lists, top threes, top fours are, UCLA understands the game, and they weren't playing some archaic game this most recent recruiting staff, right? They're getting in there, and they're battling. They are battling for their lives. And soon enough, this last-minute recruiting, they're going to win a couple of those. They haven't exactly won too many of them yet under Deshaun Foster, but soon enough, if it comes down to signing day, don't be shocked if something changes in Washington if this kid switches to UCLA, or an example of this down the line happens, because that is where UCLA is happening. Now, they did it once, big time under Chip with Dante Moore. That was the biggest. Now they're going to probably do it more consistently with 4-star linebackers, another 5-star, rising 4 stars, or rising 5 stars. They're going to get to that part soon. They're just not there just yet. But the fact that they're in the conversation is light years ahead of where they were just a few months ago under Chip Kelly. Light years. And that's where we're going to be in a couple of days from now when we post the next Locked On UCLA episode, focusing on the changes in recruiting, as, kind of talk a little bit about what Ben Bolch wrote, the energies, maybe commits. There's more guys choosing or not choosing to go to UCLA the next couple of days. We'll talk about it here on Locked On UCLA. So get your hands up, Bruins fans. 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA, fight. This has been Locked On UCLA. Zach signing off. Go Bruins.